All right. Hey everyone, I'm Jerry, co-founder CEO of Llama Index. For those of you who don't know Llama Index, we are a developer platform. We give you, as the developer or AI engineer, all the tools you need for document processing plus workflows. So today, I'll try to keep it very short and sweet and actually keep it within 5 minutes. So I just got my timer right here. We're going to just talk about some high-level architectures that are emerging in terms of like agents and how they actually help automate knowledge work. So first off, I'm sure all of you already know this, but models are like blank slates, right? So even if the model is really, really good, they're getting better and better, but they really require you to actually supply the prompt, tools, and other metadata so that you can actually achieve the task at hand. The biggest barrier to AI value is your own ability to use AI effectively. Even if the model is really good, if you don't know how to use it, you're not going to get good results. How many of you guys have heard of context engineering in the past few weeks? Okay, so like half of you. Basically, if you suck at prompting, you're not going to be able to use AI effectively. Now, just imagine you're kind of like a naive user of ChatGPT, and you just say something like, give me a financial report on Apple. Just like a really simple, dumb prompt. There's nothing else. There's no tools, no user prompt, or kind of like no system prompt, no multi-step workflow. Obviously, it's not going to give you very good results. The results are probably not going to be tuned to your user preferences. If you're in an organization, it probably doesn't follow the standards that your company has set out, and it doesn't actually mimic the steps of an actual human worker. And so automating knowledge work requires actual proper context plus workflow engineering. If you imagine kind of like an overall AI agent following a runbook, you really need two things. One, you need the right context and tools for any sort of agent reasoning loop. And then the second is, especially in the enterprise or in the workspace, you want some repeatable pattern that you can encode as a workflow. So first is context and tools, which I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about and also have heard about the importance of context engineering. But it really is pretty simple. It's really just how do you supply the right tooling so that an LLM can kind of access external services and also get back information that can feed into the context window. If you look at any general agent reasoning loop, this includes applications, your favorite ones, whether it's OpenAI, ChatGPT, Claude, Manus, Deep Research, Perplexity. Anything that has like an overall text input for you is basically like a general agent reasoning loop. And if you just equip it with the right set of tools or MCP servers, then the end result is that the agent can actually access the external world for task-specific context. The main limitation of this for actual proper kind of adoption of AI is that you, as the human, are still responsible for defining the actual input so that you get AI to do what you tell it to do. The main thing with all these assistant interfaces is it's completely dependent on you, the user. And so if you're not good at prompting, you're also not going to be able to use these types of tools effectively. Just on a side note, especially since probably 2 years ago I was on stage talking about like RAG, I think in general there's kind of like a meta architecture that's emerging, and it's really just around what are the agent reasoning loops and what are the tools. And so if you think about just like access and context, instead of thinking about it as RAG, I would really just think about it as a set of tools, whether it's retrieval, file lookup, manipulation, and other things. So if you want to access your docs, imagine just like a file system like the MCP server that you see on the open source, or just some set of like kind of tools that you plug into an agent in order to inject the right context into the prompt. Level 2 is workflow engineering. And this is something that I feel like people implicitly talk about, but they don't really talk about as much as I would expect. And it's really about, instead of just providing a super general interface for a human, how do you get an AI agent to actually encode a proper workflow, output that as a series of steps and enable repeatable use, not just for you, but also for others. And so we're kind of seeing examples of this throughout different enterprise use cases, whether it's like invoice processing, contract review, financial analysis, due diligence, and more. And so the goal is to actually define a constrained series of steps where you actually, as the user, define kind of preset prompts for the agent to follow while there's still pockets of agentic reasoning in the middle. This allows you to basically encode some overall process as kind of effectively like a DAG or some overall workflow architecture. And the benefit here is, you still probably need human in the loop at the end to review the results. but it's not completely dependent on your ability to just like prompt it for basically every step of the workflow. In contrast to something like deep research, the advantage of this is once you define the workflow, you can basically repeat it, kind of like a computer program, and just have other people use it without them also having to spend the brain cycles figuring out how to use the workflow. And so, at the end of the day, one of the values of frameworks, and the frameworks have evolved over time, but one of the core values of frameworks is to help you like define these types of workflows, so you can actually standardize an agentic application within your organization. This is just a kind of example architecture of kind of maybe doing some financial extraction over a document. You might want to split it. You might want to do some kind of like extraction over the financial tables per document, and then synthesize everything in a pandas data frame. That is a series of steps you can encode as a prompt, feed it into Cursor, or just like implement yourself in Python, and then you basically define kind of like an overall DAG of a sequence of steps that you need to follow. Last topic is just like the idea of MCP, which is obviously very related to this whole thing. If you define some automation workflow, you can not only just encode or provide context as MCP servers or tools, you can provide entire workflows as MCP tools. So one of the advantages of this is imagine you go to your favorite tool. I like Claude, but you go to Claude, and then instead of me having to figure out how to write this like giant text prompt, I can basically feed it my favorite MCP tools that basically routinely operationalize like certain things I like to do, whether it's scheduling a meeting or kind of like responding to an email or processing a document. And then I basically offload the mental burden of this to the tool itself so that I can actually achieve the task at hand. So that's basically it. And yeah, thank you very much.